All right, seeing the numbers slow down, I think we can go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to those of you joining from the West Coast. Welcome and thank you all for joining us for this edition of the Green Municipal Funds webinar series. Bonjour à toutes et à tous, et merci de vous joindre à nous pour cette édition faisant partie de la série de webinaires du Fonds municipal vert. Every month, we host one or more webinars featuring a new topic relevant to GMF's programs. And today, I'm very excited to be moderating our webinar on the newest season of the Sustainable Communities Awards program, with a look back on past winners and our 2024 call for applications. My name is Yvonne Ritchie. My pronouns are she, her, elle, and I'm an advisor with the Capacity Development Team with FCM's Green Municipal Fund. I'm also joined today by my colleagues Jillian Young and Erica Anger, who are also with the Capacity Development Team. You'll see them in the chat. Their names are English and French right now to represent the different slides that we're sharing, but they'll be able to help you out in the back end if anyone needs any technical support. And today we also have two wonderful guest speakers joining us, who I will introduce in just a couple of minutes. As we get started with today's session, I'd like to first begin by sharing that I'm joining you today from my home in Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax, on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. And I'm very grateful to be able to live and work in this beautiful part of the country. I've got beautiful sun hitting my face right now, with access to the ocean, lakes, forests, and so many wonderful natural spaces that provide so much for my community, my family, and myself. I'd like to extend my thanks and my gratitude to the Mi'kmaq communities who have cared for this land for generations before my ancestors arrived here. As an organization, FCM acknowledges with gratitude that our head offices are located on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin nations. And as we move forward with our commitment to reconciliation, we endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices, to grow in knowledge and adapt ways of working. As we continue to build meaningful relationships, we recognize the historic and ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples and honor their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening communities across the country. So wherever you are joining me from today, I encourage you to say hello in the chat, perhaps add where you're joining us from and add your own land acknowledgement if you feel comfortable doing so. We could move to the next slide, please, or to the housekeeping slide. So before we dive in, I'm sure this is familiar for those of you who've joined these webinars before, but a couple housekeeping items to run through quickly. First, today's event will be taking place in English, but we do have French interpretation available. So if you prefer to listen in French, you can click the interpretation button in the lower right corner of your screen. It's a little globe icon. And I'll just briefly repeat myself in French. Aujourd'hui, notre événement aura lieu en anglais, mais l'interprétation simultanée est disponible si vous souhaitez écouter en français. Vous pouvez cliquer sur le bouton d'interprétation qui est en bas à droite de votre écran. C'est un petit globe. Et vous pouvez sélectionner l'option française. We also have two separate slide decks in English and in French. So if you see the green bar at the top of your screen, you can select View Options to switch between English and French. As we move through our presentations today, you're welcome to submit your questions in the Q&A box as they come up. We'll try to address some of them throughout the presentations and at the end of the session as well. And if you have any comments or other questions that you'd like to pop into the chat box, you're welcome to do that in the language of your choice throughout the session. Next slide, please. So here's a quick look at the agenda for today. So as I mentioned, we're talking today about the Sustainable Communities Awards, a longstanding program of the Green Municipal Fund that I'm very excited to introduce you to today. I'll kick us off with a very brief introduction to the Green Municipal Fund and the awards, and then I'll be handing things over to our two guest speakers, Dan Hendry and Krista Cannell, both of whom are previous winners in the awards program, to talk about their experiences with the awards and their award-winning projects. And after their presentations, we'll also take a few minutes to talk about the 2024 edition of the awards, including what's new this year, and go over how to apply. Next slide, please. Before we get into our presentations today, just to give you a little bit of insight into who we are, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is a national nonprofit organization that acts as the national voice of local governments in Canada, representing over 2,000 member municipalities in all of Canada's 10 provinces and 3 territories. And through FCM, we deliver the Green Municipal Fund, which is our largest program, really aimed at helping local governments switch to sustainable practices more quickly. We offer a mix of funding, resources, and training to give municipalities the tools that they need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build resiliency, and in general, create better lives for Canadians. Next slide, please. And before we get to our speaker presentations, I would like to first introduce the awards program to members of the audience who may be less familiar with it. The Sustainable Communities Awards is an awards program that we've been offering through FCM since 2001, with awards being granted each year or every other year over that time period. And the goal of the awards really is to recognize the very best in sustainability from across Canada, providing an opportunity to showcase and celebrate the innovative and inspiring work that local governments are leading to improve the lives of Canadians. The winning projects demonstrate sustainability best practices relevant to your local context and showcase how you might be able to apply something similar in your own community. To date, FCM has granted awards to 190 odd projects across more than 130 municipalities in Canada. And it's important to highlight as well that these are national awards in scope, and communities of all sizes across Canada are encouraged to apply. To date, we've had winners in every single province and territory, ranging from populations of a few hundred people to a few million people. There's a couple images on the slide there of the winners from last year, where we awarded 8 municipalities with an award across 5 categories. So we did have some co-winners because we couldn't choose our favorites. And since 2018, we've had a representative of the winning municipalities come to our biannual Sustainable Communities Conference to present their projects, which is what you see on the slide here. And that brings me to introducing our first speaker for today, who is Krista Cannell, one of last year's award winners. Krista is the Director of Agriculture and Environment Services in Parkland County, Alberta, and represented the county's project that won the Natural Asset Management Award in 2022. So without further ado, Krista, over to you to tell us a little bit about your project.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here today to give an overview of our winning project in the natural assets category, as well as my experience working with the FCM Sustainable Communities Conference and the opportunities this award has brought me both professionally and personally. I hope my project may inspire some of you to pursue a project of your own. Next. To understand the origins of this project, let's travel back in time to late 2019. After an intense round of budget cuts, I was left with half the staff capacity and a similar workload. Departments across our organization were all in the same boat, one that isn't unfamiliar to most municipalities. Having watched my friends and colleagues be walked out the door, I was motivated to find ways that my work could increase the efficiency of our operations and reduce costs to our community. Next. For those who don't know, Parkland County is a rural municipality of about 30,000 residents spanning almost 2,400 square kilometers on the west side of Edmonton, Alberta. Most of the services provided by municipalities are delivered using infrastructure assets. These could be water treatment plants, wastewater systems, parks, facilities, and of course our roads and drainage systems, which you can see mapped for Parkland County. We generally refer to this as gray, hard, or traditional infrastructure, which is completely constructed by humans. As a rural municipality, our largest and most expensive asset is our road system, which includes drainage ditches and culverts. It spans over 2,200 kilometers and would cost around $1.9 billion to build today. Next. We dedicate about a quarter of our annual budget, or around $37 million a year, to road construction and maintenance. Now, those are big numbers, so it's easy to see why these assets are so important to us. Next. Now, what if I were to tell you that there is an underlying set of assets that we've been sitting on for years? Would you believe me if I said that these assets are our natural ecosystems and are often either undervalued by communities or not valued at all? These assets include things like wetlands, forests, lakes, and riparian areas, which you can see can be mapped just like hard infrastructure. Next. They deliver what we call ecosystem services, or the benefits that humans derive from nature. Now, what if I were to say that these assets could provide services similar to our constructed drainage network and to protect our roadways or even expand their lifespan? Would you believe me? No? Well, you wouldn't be the first. So we decided to actually measure the potential costs and benefits natural assets can have on our road network. Next. We used a groundbreaking model developed by Dr. Wan Hun Yang at the University of Guelph that predicts how individual natural assets like wetlands and riparian buffers produced 4 ecosystem services: water quality, water quantity, carbon sequestration, and biodiversity. Predictions are quantitative for the engineers that are watching, meaning it gives us actual volumes of water flow and nutrient output, as well as the cost of restoration. We can use it to not only evaluate how much it would cost to achieve our goals, but also the exact location and type of natural asset that should be used to do this in the most land efficient and cost-effective way. Overall, it showed us that something as simple as a fence along a stream can make a big difference to our water supplies. Next. The model looks specifically at agricultural practices that improve natural assets. This was perfect for our county because most of the land surrounding our roads is agricultural, and we're already delivering the ALICE program, which supports farmers and ranchers to actually use these practices. Next. So, how can natural assets reduce capital and operating costs in our road and drainage network, that $37 million a year I mentioned earlier? We needed to build a business case for using proactive natural infrastructure solutions in replacement of or in combination with traditional gray infrastructure to protect our roads. This would also alleviate the cost of reactive maintenance to ongoing drainage issues. Next. Ideally, we wanted to compare the cost of restoring natural assets to that of continually repairing and replacing gray infrastructure, while also investigating for potential benefits. Can better water management increase the lifespan of our road infrastructure? Will agricultural BMPs provide a higher level of service to our community? Will healthier natural assets allow us to design roads to a lower standard? And can they help prepare us for predicted changes in climate? Next. The large and dispersed nature of our rural road system means it's often overlooked in similar studies. So we had to build the process from scratch. We started by mapping drainage hotspots derived from a complaint database on top of road infrastructure data. Complaints were sorted into 2 categories: limited capacity versus poor maintenance. Washouts caused by limited capacity to capture water are great candidates for natural infrastructure solutions, as wetlands can act as water storage facilities, and riparian areas help to slow down water flow and increase water absorption into the ground. Next. Our mapping identified 6 candidate locations to input into our model. As you can see, they were dispersed across the watershed. Next. At each washout site, the model identified all possible upstream wetland and riparian restoration sites and predicted the changes in water flow to the road if they were restored. Next. The results were exciting. First, the level of impact was very site-specific and relied heavily on the amount of restoration opportunities that existed on the upstream agricultural land. Therefore, each site had vastly different results, but we do see some trends. Focusing on the 3 sites with the greatest potential for impact, you can see that the potential flow reduction in orange compared to the predicted peak flow for storms of increasing intensity in blue. The results? We are able to reduce the flow anywhere from 13 to 55% just by restoring what nature had already provided us. This means less stress on our roads, reduced requirement for maintenance and repairs, and lower capacity requirements for our ditches and culverts, aka cost savings for our municipality. Next. We can also see a trend that with increasing storm severity, next, you get increasing benefit, flow reduction in this case. Now, hearing storm severity, I know you're thinking climate change. Although the largest storm we evaluated was a 1 in 10 year due to data limitations, we expect that in addition to the impacts natural assets can have on our current drainage challenges, they will also act as an important climate change adaptation strategy. Next. So it's right about now that you're probably thinking, but how much does it cost? Is it cheaper or more expensive than our current practices? Using data from past projects, the model predicted that restoration would range anywhere from $160,000 to $260,000 per site. This is similar to the cost of one road and culvert repair project. But with natural assets, we're fixing the root cause rather than having to continually provide reactive maintenance or replacement, which makes them more cost-effective in the long run. On top of this, natural assets don't depreciate over time or have a replacement life cycle cost like built assets do. While we use this study to build a business case for investing in our community's natural infrastructure, we also want to prove its practicality by building real-life demonstration projects. On the screen now, you can see a picture of our first wetland construction project during the actual construction process in winter 2022. The road next to the wetland was dealing with regular washouts and flooding. The flooding was costing the county over $170,000 per 240 meters of road we had to repair. We use this site to put our theory into practice and design a wetland that will help eliminate future washouts by providing more water storage adjacent to the road. Next, design and construction of this wetland cost about $220,000, but it should eliminate future need for road reconstruction. Also, keep in mind that wetlands that need to be constructed tend to be much more expensive projects than those that can simply be restored through things like ditch plugs. In addition, we were able to leverage the province's wetland replacement program, which paid for 100% of the costs using fees levied from wetland loss through development. So I like to call it basically free. And as a bonus, the residents of the neighborhood now get to enjoy this beautiful area seen in the photo only about 8 months following construction. Next. And this is just another photo of the wetland. Next. Over the next few years, our plan is to construct wetlands along old and, dare I say, poorly functioning licensed drainage systems, where we are constantly receiving flooding complaints from residents. The idea is that the addition of wetlands will create an overflow area to store water along the channels in times of higher precipitation and prevent flooding on residential lots. Next. Of course, our roads and drainage projects are only one example of what these assets can contribute to the services and infrastructure we provide in both cost savings and quality of life for our community. We've only just begun to estimate the impact that they can have on our built infrastructure systems, and are only now starting to understand the value of their co-benefits, such as improvements to agricultural crops through pollination, storage of carbon, or increases to recreation and tourism. In our scenarios, the wetlands will also have many other co-benefits, such as water quality improvements and wildlife habitat to support increased biodiversity. My team is now working on a project to map and track all of the county's natural assets in our asset management system, and beginning to design a valuation system for quantifying some of those ecosystem services as well. Overall, we'd like to build a big picture of our community's ecological bank account, so to speak. Next. We've also started to apply this model in different ways. For example, to build practical water quality targets and prioritize our agricultural grant program. In this scenario, we assessed where to use various methods of on-farm riparian restoration to achieve an overarching water quality goal at the lowest cost. Next. Now, I was very lucky to complete this project as part of a wonderful team of collaborators who actually extended its reach to an entire watershed that sits just upstream of the city of Edmonton. Outputs from this work have shown that decisions made in our rural areas can severely impact millions of people in downstream city centers, and they really underline the importance of supporting our rural communities to conserve their natural assets. Next. But as we start to get excited about what's next, let's just take a step back and think big picture. What is the first thing that you notice about this image? How do you describe the landscape? What you probably first saw was that it was covered in a grid system of various size squares. This is a tribute to our human tendency to organize and divide into straight lines in equal segments. But I want you to imagine what this landscape would have looked like before human settlement. Next. Perhaps it would have looked something like this. As you can see, there are no perfect squares or boxes. Rivers flow in meandering patterns, forests sprawl, the topography is curved. My point is that natural systems do not follow human boundaries or political borders. They flow through them and carry the impacts from one community downstream to the next. This is why it is so critical for us to continue to work together to evaluate our impacts from a watershed perspective. Next. Now, understanding that a model like this isn't available to everyone. I think that the point that we've demonstrated is the credibility of natural infrastructure solutions for challenges where we would normally default to engineering. And we've also demonstrated that they can be more cost-effective than traditional engineering. On the screen is another example of how we're starting to restore ecosystems on the ground using shoreline bioengineering that will limit erosion and sedimentation from a roadway into an important recreational lake. Bioengineering sounds like a fancy term, but really it's just a way of using plant material to produce an engineering function. On the slide, you can see a wattle fence that can be used to replace a traditional retaining wall along a water body. And it's constructed entirely of willow and poplar stakes, next, which will grow into trees and hold the soil in place. And I think it looks a lot prettier than a concrete retaining wall. Next. Some other easy bioengineering methods we've used include shoreline staking, which is seen in the photo following construction and then one growing season later, next, as well as live silt fences, seen here in a similar fashion, next. We're also actively incentivizing producers to bring our theory to life by making changes in their operations that improve the health of our natural assets. Some of the types of projects we support on farms include things like fencing off water bodies from livestock, restoring riparian areas, and rotational grazing that can improve the health of pastures and increase carbon sequestration. Next. Now, I wanted to take a moment to thank the FCM for the opportunities that they've provided me through the awards experience. The FCM put in a lot of effort to help us prepare for the conference. We were set up with a speaking coach, which was a great way for me to perfect my skills in creating engaging talks like this one. And we were provided many opportunities to network with other award winners across Canada who are undoubtedly leaders in their fields. I was able to use these expertise and experiences to better communicate my work to my council. And as an added bonus, I was promoted shortly after the conference last year. This project and the visibility we've received by winning the Sustainable Communities Award has gone a long way to garner support for natural infrastructure work, not only in my county, but across the province. Our project is being incorporated into guidebooks created by the Natural Assets Initiative. And actually, just this morning, I was told it was included in a presentation last week by the International Institute for Sustainable Development as one of the best examples on the Canadian prairies right now. In February of this year, I was invited to speak at a provincial forum on natural assets, where I was able to inspire others with a simple message. What better way to convince the public of the importance of natural assets and the ecosystem services they provide than making the connection to better quality roads and lower taxes? Next. So in 2018, I was sitting in a seat similar to you. I was at the Sustainable Communities Conference watching presentations from the award winners of that year. Our next speaker is actually one of them. I was inspired. I told myself that one day I'd be standing on that stage presenting on innovations Parkland County had taken. Because of that experience, my goal now is to continue to inspire, one more leader at a time, to start to think outside the box, to pursue natural infrastructure solutions for their most pressing challenges. So, did I achieve my goal? Will that one leader be you? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Krista. Great presentation, and congratulations on the promotion. I'd say that's a good incentive to apply to apply for the awards, if nothing else. But yeah, that's such a cool project. I really love how data driven it is, and it's such a great business case for the value of natural assets. I think it's you did such a great job in putting that together. So thank you again. I see also that my colleagues have just dropped some resource links into the chat there. So if you'd like to learn more about the project, we have a case study as well as the videos from Krista's original presentation on our YouTube channel. So feel free to take a look at those. And now I'm going to turn things over to our second speaker for today. Dan Hendry is the co-founder and project director of the Get on the Bus movement through the Small Change Fund. And Dan represented the City of Kingston's Transit High School Bus Pass project, which won a Sustainable Communities Award back in 2018. So Dan's going to tell us a little bit more about what he's been up to over the past 5-6 years and where the project has gone. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I just had myself on a hard mic there. My name is Dan Hendry, and I'm here to present around the Get on the Bus movement, which is driven by the Small Change Fund. And I think I'm going to start by saying, I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for what we did with the FCM. And so next slide, please. I'm going to go over the quick agenda today. So we'll start with the Kingston High School Bus Pass program, in which we won the award for in 2018. I'd like to talk about the experience as well as some personal growth and other professional opportunities I gained, I think, from this. And then the national movement that I'm working on still, and working in a very much more formal and strategic way, I would say. Next slide, please. So to start off, in 2018, I'm going to take you back a little bit further to 2012 in a second, but before the pandemic, cities across Canada were looking at Kingston for multiple reasons around transit. It was not just the project I worked on, it was multiple, but I'm going to share a little bit about the youth side of that. Next slide, please. To start off in 2012, this is when the city of Kingston at the time allowed for grade 9s to ride for free. And then what happened was the next year, they said, well, to the school board, which I work still part-time, they said, well, how about we let grade 10s ride for free too? Let's see how that goes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this timeline and then get into the FCM and what I'm working on with the Small Change Fund. Next slide, please. So let's start off in 2012. I worked for the city of Kingston and the school board at the time, and I saw that the councillors and the trustees had just decided from a political side that they're going to let grade 9s ride for free. So I have a background in sustainability, and I looked at that opportunity thinking, this is pretty neat. Like, I haven't seen this before, right? And so that's about a 14-year-old or so, first year of high school. And next slide, please. What that opportunity created was the need to think about it a bit more, work with the community a bit more, talk to transit and the schools and figure out the logistics. It was a great policy decision, but it had to be brought to life. And so over a couple of years, what we did was we created a process in which we brought a city bus to all of our local high schools. During that day, the students would be able to logistically get their cards, passes. It was a lot easier than getting kids to go all over the city with different IDs and stuff, plus reducing barriers and allow for accessibility and equity through distribution. We also talked, next slide, please, about training, about how to use the bus. And sometimes I think over time, I'm not totally, over time, I'm not totally sure if the training was just about, it's not just about, sorry, I kind of got thrown off there a second. The training is not just about how to use the bus. It's like things around the value of it, about taking transit, about getting to work, about getting to school, about getting to jobs, about volunteering. And what this slide now, and continuing on the slide, please, is saying is that 28,000 rides the first year. That's what I thought was impressive. But every year since, they allowed the next grades to ride for free. We got to a point that almost 500,000 to 600,000 rides per year are taken by high school students. And that's still picking up after the pandemic. What excites me about this slide as well is you'll see that dip between the orange and the white. That's the summertime. So that means students are using things during the summer, getting around, jobs, volunteering. And this is what this program is about. Next slide, or next push, please. What that allowed to do is create an opportunity in 2017 for a young woman named Veronica Sullivan to do a master's thesis on it. And what she found, that grade 12 students use it on average 3 times more than grade 9s. And what also inspired me at that time, and why we applied, I think, for the GMF's Sustainable Communities Award and other things, was because it said that other North American municipalities could benefit from such a program. Things like increasing students' responsibility, confidence, independence, but also growing transit ridership. Next slide, please. So continuing on this, after we saw that, we saw the opportunity and we thought, let's, myself and the transit director at the time, let's apply for this award. Let's share our story. Let's see what others think about it, right? And let's share, because for me, personally and professionally, I work on climate action all the time. And I think it's my moral and human imperative to amplify and help support others, because if we have good solutions, there's no more time to wait. We have to share. And so that was kind of the catalyst of what we thought there. And we won the award. Next slide, please. What that did for both the project and myself personally, again, I'm truthful. I don't think I would be where I am right now without that pivotal point in my life. First thing, it trained me to get on stage. It trained me with a coach to do kind of a TEDx style talk in front of 500 people and synthesize everything to a point of understanding that others could hear, understand the value, and see it different ways. I was shaking on stage, I can tell you that much. It's a bit easier presenting towards a little black dot sometimes now, but it gave me that confidence understanding after we were aware that we were going to be doing the award. And so personally, I think that changed my life, truthfully. Next slide, please. Not only that, but after we collaborated with the FCM, or I collaborated with the FCM to create, as I said, to share. And it sounds like Chris is doing the same thing, which is, I think, the best part of what we can do is share and support and make it real that we're Canadian and we're helping support each other. And organizations like the FCM or the Green Municipal Fund, through different grants, make these happen. And through that, we created a French and an English guide about what we've created in Kingston, including things like, if you're interested, the background story, some of the data, stats, value, but also even to rip out a piece if you wanted an example of the type of a field trip form I used for my students in Kingston. Next slide, please. So these are the types of resources. Now, again, on a personal side. So this is a TEDx in Ottawa I completed in 2019 to tell the story. And it wasn't, I would not have applied for this if it was not for the GMF and the FCM's Sustainable Communities Awards. I can tell you that. It was the confidence that it gave me. And it's still the same vein. I wanted to create resources that told the story, a different story, a shorter story, a tighter story. And through that, and things keep on compounding. This is the one thing I've realized in my life, that I will never stop talking about this because of what I've seen firsthand. And I'll continue on. Next slide, please. Not only that, but it got recognized as a top 10 climate solution by Al Gore's Climate Reality Project. And there's a 2-minute little documentary on that shared all across the world. So these are the types of things that start to compound and share. And I love that part of this because I love looking at other projects that can make my community more robust, resilient towards the climate crisis. Next slide, please. So as we continue, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the national movement now. And so from what this has done, I think fundamentally, it came to a point during COVID, about 2021, I hit a personal block. I've been telling this story, sharing hundreds of hours on top of work, and I needed support. And that's when I was looking around, and there was a not-for-profit, a charity in Toronto called the Small Change Fund. Burkhart Mosberg is the CEO and the founder. And I got in touch with him and he said, yeah, let's try to collaborate. And so over a year and a half, we wrote different grants and we got a grant to create the Get on the Bus movement. So what this is about, next slide, please. The Get on the Bus movement is really about how to get youth on the bus for free and train them how to use it. Now, it's not always about just the municipality having to pay for those students, right? It's really about thinking strategically about policy, looking for resources, collaborating with school boards, other business partners. And how do we get students and youth on the bus for free? And then how do you train them how to use it? Because what we're trying to do is develop policies, partnerships, resources that really get students to choose transit. And it makes them multimodal. Like even if they leave the front door when they get older, they still have the confidence of maybe driving transit, walking, biking. There's just so many benefits of instilling this because public transit is our commons. It's our resource together. Next slide, please. So June 12th, 2023, we put together a virtual webinar around what we were working on and some of the partners and some of the resources available. And from that, and I know I saved a little bit of time because I really wanted to hear from our students. Next slide, please. It might take a second here because there will be some change in sound. So just be patient for 1 second, because honestly, they inspire me every time I watch it. So they spoke at the launch of the Get on the Bus movement. So just be a second here.
Hi all, I'm Maeve. I'm a grade 12 student at Bay Ridge in Kingston. And so being a grade 12 student with my bus pass has allowed me to balance school, extracurriculars, and work. And this really wouldn't be possible without my bus pass. My bus pass has provided me with security for knowing that I'll always have a safe ride to and from work. And in addition, the bus pass for high school students has made access to extracurriculars and learning opportunities possible. Speaking from my personal experience, I'm a member of the Ultimate Frisbee team, and my whole team was able to travel to our tournaments and games using the Kingston bus pass. In the classroom, many of our classes this year have gone on field trips using the bus. So for example, we were able to attend the Kingston Film Festival with my English class. And finally, as an environmental specialist high skills major student, I was able to complete my enrichment activity at Queen's University using my bus pass. As the eco minister of my school, when I take the bus, I'm proud to know that I'm making a positive choice to minimize my personal impact on the environment. And then to conclude, without my bus pass, some of the most influential experiences and learning opportunities for me would have not been accessible without my bus pass.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to top that, but I had a job filming a local hockey team's games, and it was good to have the bus in my back pocket. I even have my bus pass here today. In case I couldn't be driven to the games, I would always just take the bus to and from my games, and that would really help me. I also use the bus to get to and from school daily, and I know many of my fellow classmates do as well. It also makes it easier to hang out with friends. I've taken public transit many times to get to various places to hang out with friends. Having the transit card really gives me freedom and helps me become more independent. It also allows me to see my friends wherever and whenever I want, which is essential for young and older teenagers. The training also is really helpful because, funny story, one time my friend who didn't go to training day because he wasn't there, he was sick, he tried to get on the bus through the back doors instead of the front doors, but I helped him get on properly as I was there during training day. Training day helps students understand rules and safety on the bus they would otherwise have to learn on their own, and it only took 20 minutes. And this one gets said a lot, but again, it's the more people on public transportation means fewer cars on the road, which means less emissions and traffic. And let's face it, who doesn't want less traffic? Another thing is that it also, like Maeve was saying, it does help to get to extracurriculars. Like I'm part of the Bay Ridge Computer Specialist program, and we went on a trip to Queen's University, like the campus, to go see, I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was some research thing that they're doing. The fourth year students were displaying their video game creations that they had done. So we collectively all took the 502, which is a bus that goes from Bay Ridge to downtown. We went there and we had a blast. Overall, this program has really helped me, and I can't wait to see it reach out to other communities across Canada and the world.
Thank you. I think we'll just have to flip back to my deck there. There are different variables, but I believe as adults, as community leaders, there's value to this. There's great value. You know, things like lowering the cost of school programs, reducing GHGs, air pollution, traffic congestion, making it easy to support local businesses, high school students getting jobs that they want or they can get to, makes it more accessible. It creates lifelong transit users. One thing I didn't say earlier, but I can tell you since 2017, paid transit ridership for monthly passes have gone up 140%. You know, and so this is driving and new users. I love one quote from the former transit director that helped me build this program. And he said, "Youth breathe life to a transit system because youth can bring their parents and they get together, you know, and so they use it for different things. They create autonomy, accessibility. My own daughter, you know, she uses it, and it's just so nice to see. It provides youth from all backgrounds access to life-enriching opportunities. It builds independence, encourages travel, boosts participation for cultural or employment opportunities, and increases community resources and services. And so, you know, I like to think of this, once communities can work together to figure it out, as an enhancement. It's amplifying our already existing budgets, right? How many municipalities want students to get to a farmer's market or to a cultural institution? Or how much is parents' time worth, right, to drive students around? How much is the value of independence and confidence for youth in the face of mental health issues, right? And so this is what I've seen firsthand. I'm very passionate about this. Next slide, please. Just to finish it off, a couple more slides here. These are communities that I'm aware of across Canada investing in youth in some fashion around this. They look differently, and that's why this is a movement. We don't own everything. We're here to support through resources, policy, understanding, expertise. Communities like Oakville, Ontario, 13 to 19 for free, blanket, right? Kingston is a high school-based program that we created when we created. Halifax is doing a pilot in a high school-based one. Belleville High School. Orangeville, Ontario, what I've seen is all people free. I just read actually and presented to London, Ontario the other day, and they're going to try a high school-based one. So I always say start somewhere. Next slide, please. And now back to finish it off, as I said, I think earlier, the time is now to share climate solutions. We do not have time. We are mammals. There are 8 billion people. We rely on the biosphere. We cannot disconnect from that. And so we have to share. I think that's one thing. Public speaking and exposure to other opportunities, depending on yourself, to challenge yourself. My dog could repeat that talk, I can tell you, as I was practicing through the winter, and it was cold, but get recognized for your work, maybe promotions or other opportunities like this. Connect with other sustainability leaders. It's unreal of how many cool people you get to meet, when you're going through this process as well. And then the personal benefits of, for myself, increased confidence and just to be coached. It's not often as an adult, I think that like I went in as, this is my coach. What should I do? Teach me, and it was really good. Next slide, please. I'd like to finish there and bring yeah, there's my contact information. Please reach out if you have any interest on the project or my experience through the FCM. And thank you. Thanks again, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Dan. As always, so great to hear about this project. I think, like you, I was smiling when you had the high school students presenting on their experience with the program. It's so cool to see and really great to hear about all of the kind of personal progress that this has meant for you as well, and in terms of your own growth. If you have questions for Dan or Krista, please add them to the Q&A box or the chat now, and we can go through those in a few minutes. I'd like to take a few minutes before we jump into Q&A just to run through some updates and let you know about the 2024 edition of the awards. So hopefully now that you've had an opportunity to hear from some past winners, you're now thinking about all the work that you've done and are feeling inspired to submit a project. So without further ado, if we go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about this year's awards. So as you've been hearing throughout the Sustainable Communities Awards, fundamentally at their core, they're about recognizing and celebrating the best of sustainable municipal innovation across Canada. And every year or every other year when we run this program, we tend to make some changes to our awards categories to reflect the most current priorities being offered through the Green Municipal Fund. But there's a lot of similarities that you'll see kind of across the different years. And this year's awards categories are broken into to seven different groups that reflect different priorities in sustainability. So we have community energy, which is renewable energy, district energy, anything really focused on providing energy storage and solutions to members of your community. There's the Natural Assets Award, which is what Krista spoke to, transportation, like what Dan's project was based on. We also have a sustainable buildings category. So that's focused on new builds, retrofits, municipal and community buildings that are really driving toward innovative approaches to the places that we live and work. The climate change mitigation category is a little bit broader. This one is more focused on community GHG emissions as a whole. So what are the planning processes, the programs that you're implementing that are really designed to drive down GHG emissions in your community? Waste, focused on circular economy, reducing waste and solid waste and making better use of landfill gas. And then finally, climate adaptation, which of course looks at anything related to resilience. I won't go through all of those in detail, but if you go onto the awards webpage, there's a lot more information about each category, including a list of different project examples that might qualify under each category, and links to case studies from previous winners if you need some inspiration. So we'll make sure that information is included in the chat as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of who can apply, this is very similar to the eligibility for our funding programs. All municipal governments across Canada are eligible to apply for these awards. And in addition, if you are not a municipality, but you are a partner to a municipality, whether that's as an affordable housing provider, private sector research institute or consultancy, Indigenous communities, municipal corporations, nonprofits, you're all welcome to apply as well, provided that you are demonstrating that the project that you're working on is in partnership with the municipality. So on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about what's needed to apply. And next slide, please. those aspects of your application is identifying a municipal staff person or elected official who is part of the project team, who would be able to lead on the project and attend the conference. So, we've had projects in the past that have won that have been cohorts of municipalities applying together, where you have a representative from one of the communities or from a nonprofit partner who is presenting on behalf of those municipalities. But typically our approach is to really showcase the municipal voice in this context. So when you're applying, please make sure to include at least one staff person or elected official. Another element that we'll ask you to provide is a signed letter of support from municipal council or the mayor. And we've also added the option to have a letter of support from a senior staff person this year as an alternative. So really what we're looking for is a representation from the municipality that, yes, we support this project. Yes, we think it's worth nominating for an award. And so having that coming from a senior staff person or from council is the best way for us to do that. A picture to help promote your project is, of course, always nice. We saw lots of beautiful pictures from the presentations today. And then finally, we'll want to learn about your project. So we have a number of questions asking for details on the project. You'll provide information on sort of the project goals, the needs that it's addressing in your community, the environmental, socioeconomic outcomes, or other intended benefits of the project, key lessons learned. And this year, we're also really doubling down on our focus on stakeholder and rights holder engagement and consultation. So that is including rights holder engagement with Indigenous communities, as well as other ways that you've incorporated equity and a consideration for anti-racism into the design of your project. The last thing I want to mention, which isn't included on the slide, is that the project should also be a recent project. So typically we say that we're looking for projects that have either started or ended between January 2021 and the end of June 2024, which is when the application period closes. And this is primarily to ensure that we're focusing on recent projects. So if it's something that started in 2018 and it's been ongoing, that is eligible to apply. Or if you're just getting started on it and you haven't finished the project yet, but it's still got significant work that you want to recognize, that's eligible for the awards as well. Next slide, please. How to apply. So all of this information is accessible on our website, but I just wanted to quickly show where you'll go to actually submit your application. So we have an account on a platform called Submittable. You'll see here that you will be asked to create an account in order to submit your application. That's an important detail that I want to mention, especially if you have multiple people working on the same application. But you'll be able to access all of the questions online, come back and save it and come back at any time. But if you would like a PDF copy of the application to share around with your team, please also feel free to reach out to us and we can provide that as well. If we could just click to the next as well. I just want to illustrate also an important detail is the deadline. So applications are open now, and there's about 2 months to go in order to apply for the awards. So the deadline is midnight on Friday, June 28th. And after all of the applications are submitted, there will be about a 6 to 8 week period in which they'll be reviewed by a panel of judges. And our intention is to notify winners by September if they are successful. And if you'd like to learn more about the judges, we also have a webpage accessible from the main awards webpage that tells you a little bit about who's on the judging panel. Next slide, please. So what happens if you win? Well, following the selection process, what we go through with the judges, FCM will contact you in September to let you know that you've been successful. And then we will also have an official announcement that goes out through our social media and our newsletters to communicate who the award winners are. Apart from that, we also send a letter to the mayor and council of winning municipalities to acknowledge the achievement. Our team will then work with winners, as Dan and Krista talked about, to help promote the project, share the story through networking opportunities and other promotions, creating case studies and toolkits to share lessons learned, as well as videos. And I think you can really tell from Dan and Krista's presentation how much of an added value this was, but the speaker coaching is something that we're really excited about as being part of this process. We first introduced this in 2018. The idea that each winner gets to work with a dedicated speaking professional to help craft their project story into a narrative that can be shared on stage in a TED Talk, an unofficial TED Talk like setting. And this year, as with previous years, the official awards ceremony will take place at our Sustainable Communities Conference, where you'll have the opportunity to present your TED Talk. More details to come very soon on the date and location of our next Sustainable Communities Conference. And through this process, we hope that it gives you an opportunity to connect with partners who are interested in similar initiatives, brings recognition to the work that you've done, and allows your idea to really grow. Next slide, please. So really, this is just recapping what we've already heard. As you've seen through the presentations today, one of the primary benefits of winning really is that opportunity to be recognized by your peers, community, national media, and showcase and present your project on a national stage at our Sustainable Communities Conference. Through the support that we're hoping to provide with the individual coaching, it'll also give you an opportunity to put your best foot forward for the project, share an interesting story, and hopefully build some of your own skills for presentation as well. And that's my quick recap of the awards. So we still have a few minutes left, so I'd like to just take a look to see if there's any questions that have come in the chat. All right, I'll give you a few minutes to type those out. And maybe while I'm waiting for questions to come in, I'm going to throw one back to Dan and Krista. You've certainly talked a fair bit about your experience with the awards kind of post-winning, but what advice would you have for people who are interested in applying, just to get a successful application out the door? What are some of the things that from your perspective go into writing and for putting forward a successful application?
It's definitely been a while for me. A couple of things have
Fair
happened
enough.
since 2018, but I think it's really about, finding that project, which you probably are thinking about because you're here, talking to the partners early, maybe showing them this. I think this would help if there's a link after, but just starting to rough it out. We roughed it on a Google Doc, I think at the time, and started just brainstorming, right? And just really communication between some of the different partners, if there's multiple partners, because there's a lot of value for a lot of people, but I think it's just getting it down and starting to create roles and communicating.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Krista?
Yeah, I think those are really good points. I think for me, it was like why not? Sometimes you think, is my project really good enough? Is it something that other people will be interested in? But why not put in an application and see? Because I think that, yeah, you don't know until you try. And I also just really made sure that my application was something that spoke to the values of the program, and really tried to elaborate on how the benefits of the project in a way that other people would understand, because especially if it's something that's really technical like ours was, it can be difficult to communicate in a clear way.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think that actually leads me into there's a question in the chat about do projects in the ideation phase qualify for the award? If it's something that you're just getting started with and you don't have a lot of concrete outcomes as of yet, you may be better off waiting until the next iteration of the award so that you can have more to comment on. But I mean, ultimately, it is your call. I think, as Krista said, it doesn't hurt to take the chance and apply. We do try our best to make the application process fairly smooth and straightforward. It's not like a really lengthy process. But because you'll be asked to comment on things like the outcomes or even the intended outcomes, lessons learned, how you intend to measure the success of the project, some of those details might be a little bit easier to comment on when the project is more advanced. So really, if you have questions about the specific project, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and we can chat about it. But yeah, typically you might be better off with something that's a bit further along. Also, I see there's a question for you specifically, Dan. This is about your project. Aside from creating free fare, transit fare for students, did you have to work with the transit company or organization to provide enhancements to the transit services, such as increased routes, service hours, frequency of bus service, etc.?
See, I'll speak as best I can because I don't work technically right now with the municipality the same way. But the city of Kingston and a lot of municipalities or transit authorities do regularly look at their flow, their assets, where they're going, right? And so when we set it up, it was not a school-based program right off the bat. That's where some people would say, well, is it about replacing yellow buses? No, like maybe long term there's a partnership or something for efficiency, but that is never why we did it. It was with the community side. So to answer your question, we didn't really know what we were doing to start. I would say that over time, as they watch patterns like the general public asset, they would accommodate some of the routes and stuff, but nothing major was, I think, ever shifted. Definitely not off the bat. It was always about the bigger picture of it being a public asset and where it makes most sense when. And so, yeah, not directly, no.
Okay, thanks for that. Alexandria, to your question there about the email contact, we just put that in the chat as well. But if you have follow-up questions and would like to get in touch with us about the awards, it's a simple email address. It's awards@fcm.ca. Ça marche aussi pour le français. So if you would like to chat afterwards, we're happy to take questions that way. Do a last check for more questions here. There's a question for Krista as well, and maybe this will be a good one to end off with. First, thank you for the great work and presentation. I'm wondering if any publications are available detailing the process you took to quantify Parkland County's natural assets and modeling of the costs of specific metrics.
No, that's a good question. So for this project specifically, there isn't a report detailing the roads aspect specifically, but Dr. Wenhang Yang, who created the model that we use, has a number of publications that detail the methods that go into the modeling piece. As well as we're now working on a natural asset inventory and valuation for the county that kind of expands the idea beyond just wetlands, riparian areas, roads, that sort of thing. So we will have a report coming at the beginning of 2025 with that as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And there's a question from Francis, which I think I can answer, which is our innovative approaches at the strategic level, such as those that integrate the Sustainable Development Goals, also admissible. I feel like this might be worth a conversation offline, Francis, just to learn a little bit more about the specific project. But the climate change mitigation category tends to be quite broad in the sense that it's, strategic or program level, plan level type initiatives that are focused on community efforts to achieve net zero. So the categories are designed in a way that they tend to focus on specific environmental benefits. But of course, if it's something that's more holistic and is covering not only climate change mitigation, but also equity, poverty reduction, anything like that, those kinds of things can all be part of a bigger project. You're welcome to highlight those as well. And I think there will be a lot of benefit to featuring something really holistic like that. So certainly feel free to reach out to us if you have questions and take a look at the application question online. You're always welcome to just see what the questions are, even if you decide not to apply, just to get a sense of what things you'll need to provide in order to submit the application. All right, it is almost time, so I'm just going to wrap us up with a couple quick